Not only was August packed with great new metal releases, some of them frankly shocked me. First up, we have Psycroptic with Divine Council. Now, if you're looking for riffs, this Australian technical death and groove metal band's got you covered. In particular, those familiar with Lamb of God will enjoy the near constant deluge of picking heavy licks amidst the chugging palm mutes. The first half of Ashes of Our Hate even sounds straight out of Ashes of the Wake, but as the melodic elements start creeping in around the halfway point, it evolves into something else entirely. Despite the emphasis on riffing, these guys definitely get a bit more atmospheric than some of their peers, as with tracks like Awakening, A Fragile Experience, or the downright symphonic Enslavement. Sort of Lamb of God meets Obscura and Archspire. And while Psycroptic may have never hit it as big as Lamb of God despite getting started around the same time, I'd say that this album proves that they may have the superior staying power. Then we have Brymir with Voices in the Dark. Now, when we talk melodic death metal, understandably minds often go to Sweden, especially in a month like this one, more on that in a bit. But Finland is right up there too in my book, with Brymir being a shining example of that. Take the intensity of Arch Enemy with the folky, atmospheric leanings of Insomnium and Encephalum, and you'll get something that closely resembles this stunning album. Tracks like Voices in the Sky, Forged in War, and especially Herald of Aegir showcase the full package when it comes to speed, dynamics, and most of all, fun, from the vocals to the insane guitar work. If that little clip alone isn't enough to get you interested, I don't know what to tell you. I was absolutely floored by this release, and I'm so happy to share it with you all so it doesn't fly under the radar. What a month to be a melodic death metal fan. On a different note, we have Hive with Spiritual Poverty. This Minneapolis band delivers a particularly crusty brand of hardcore packed with raucous D-beats, pummeling riffs, and death metal-inspired bellows. In a word, it just sounds violent, no hope, no remorse, just cold condemnation and bitter abnegation. I mean, that pretty much sums it all up. True to its title, Spiritual Poverty is 34 minutes of pure piss and vinegar, broken up only by the slower, sludgy turn of Metamorphosis before ramping right back up again. Maybe avoid anything you wouldn't want to break while listening to this one.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Then we have Carrion Vael with Abhorrent Obsessions. Carrion Vael is another group I previously praised in my Bands Like the Black Dahlia Murder video, and rest assured, it's bands like this carrying the torch that I'm sure would make Trevor proud of the clear influence he's had on the scene. Abhorrent Obsessions is a high-octane and highly technical take on a lot of those same modern melodeath hallmarks, from the ominous yet catchy riffing to the varied vocal approach, and with a few nice symphonic touches to boot. I think I'm particularly fond of King of the Rhine when it comes to the songwriting, really keeping me on my toes. Simply put, this album is a non-stop flurry of killer hooks, ripping solos, chaotic drumming, and plenty of great scream-along segments too. Let's face it, no one can ever do it quite like the Black Dahlia Murder, but it's nice to know that the spirit will never die with bands like Carrion Vael in the fold. Then we have the return of the legendary Sigh with Shiki. Now, a new album from Sigh is something that I always look forward to, as the one thing you can always expect from them is the unexpected. This Japanese avant-garde metal band has been blowing minds since the 90s, and rarely is one album the same as the last. Enter Shiki, roughly translating to 4 seasons, which is a somewhat stripped-back meditation on getting older with life's winter approaching. I'll admit that I tend to prefer Sigh's more bombastic and way out there albums like Graveword and Scenes from Hell, but this is another intriguing entry into their discography, with Mirai really leaning into the Japanese vocals alongside influences that range from lumbering doom to 70s prog, and with some fantastic drumming courtesy of Fear Factory's Mike Heller. As is generally the case with this band, this is likely the most unique thing you will hear this month, and maybe even this year. Then kind of a shocker here with our first really mainstream release on this list, and that is Soulfly with Totem. Another case of a bigger release that I really didn't have expectations for this year, absolutely flooring me with just how damn fun it is. Sure, it's no Soulfly or Primitive, but I might even rank this album in like 4th place, just after freaking Prophecy with how hard it goes. Tracks like Filth Upon Filth and Scouring the Vael are easily among their heaviest tracks to date, with the latter featuring John Tardy of death metal legends Obituary. There's honestly no good reason why this band should be dropping one of their best albums this late in their career, but there you have it. It's no new revelation or best album of the year level stuff, but if you just want some great grooves to bang your head to, this is another great listen alongside Decapitated and Misery Index. And for more thoughts, check out my entire discography tier list. Then we have the Hirsch Effect with Solitaer Gregaer. The Hirsch Effect is one of those best bands you've never heard of worthy groups that regularly tops my list with each new release, but still ends up mostly coasting under the radar again. Their sound is highly diverse, an innovative union of progressive, mathcore, death metal, symphonic, and indie rock, kind of for fans of Between the Buried and Me, the Mars Volta, and the aforementioned Sigh. One minute they're basically melodic death metal with palingenesis, and the next they're going full the Dillinger Escape Plan with Amorphous. This EP finds the band even further experimenting with the tracks, this time developed by each member individually, as well as alternate and orchestral versions of previously released material. If this is your entry point to the band, I can't recommend their other works enough in the likes of Collapse and Escapist, one of the most exciting bands coming out of Germany right now. Flipping the script again, we have Heilung with Drif. Now this one is not really metal per se, but if metal was a term that existed in ancient times, this is what it would have applied to. Hand drums, clanking bones, throat singing, tribal chanting, flutes, strings, and haunting female cleans in a similar style as Mercure take the listener away to another time and place. There are quite a few projects doing this kind of dark pagan folk sound, but I'd argue that Heilung is the best of the bunch. The atmosphere is unmatched, even on the same cinematic scale as movies like The Northman. And speaking of which, they actually did the soundtrack for the upcoming Hellblade 2 game that I can't wait to get my hands on. Beautiful music that will put you in a completely different headspace and linger with you long afterwards. I hear they're fantastic live, too. And then another big mainstream shocker this month was Arch Enemy with Deceivers. Now y'all, I've got to be totally honest in saying I haven't really loved an Arch Enemy album since Angela's time with the band, but this may be the biggest shocker on the list, because with Deceivers, I think they've crafted their best album since Doomsday Machine. With a seemingly endless display of memorable hooks, dynamic songwriting, and a full harnessing of Alisa's unique strengths as a vocalist, I think they knocked it out of the park, especially when embracing her heavy and power metal abilities on tracks like House of Mirrors and Handshake with Hell. Honestly, I was kind of hoping for a full album showcasing these elements, but as it stands, it's a great mix with those alongside the classic thrashier stuff like Deceiver, and Sunset Over the Empire. I wouldn't call it a perfect album, but it's more than enough to restore a lot of good faith I had previously lost in this band, and surprisingly, it even beat out the new Soil work for me. But as enjoyable as that album was, it easily gets beaten out by this next one. The Halo Effect with Days of the Lost. I try to avoid hyperbole, but this may be my favorite melodic death metal release of the entire year so far. With Michael of Dark Tranquillity and members from various eras of In Flames, the end result is easily better than anything the latter has done in years, and at least as good as the former's Atoma. It's the perfect mix of death metal headbanging with catchy melodies, and hooks here seem to be without end. Frankly, not only is there not a single dud among these tracks, but they're pretty much all single-worthy. And for the Trivium fans out there, Matt Heafy makes a guest appearance on Last of Our Kind. Powerful stuff that takes me back to the glory days of blasting Damage Done and Colony in my high school years. Nice to have a supergroup that is actually greater than the sum of its parts. Let me know your favorites from the month down in the comments, and check out this playlist for plenty more of my favorite picks of 2022 so far. Stick around for those tier lists. Like I said, I have Soulfly and also Arch Enemy. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.